answers, I change the questions. It's me, Austin!
Who are you to doubt El Daniel? Because this guy's a serious professional.
Brett screwed Brett.
Yeah! Can he do it? Taller! Oh, and a kick out! Unbelievable!
Too hot to handle and too cold to hold. And I am the Macho King Savage.
Woo! Shut your mouth, you thong-wearing fatty!
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hey, yo, Pro Wrestling Podcast listeners, welcome to the show where we don't sing it, we bring it. Help us out and click subscribe to show your support. Are you sick and tired of dropping $60 to $100 for the latest and greatest wrestling video game? Stop immediately. Go to Wrestler Unstoppable, available exclusively through Facebook. Create a wrestler, sign contracts, get involved in storylines, headline pay-per-views, even build your own corporation, all included in Wrestler Unstoppable, available now to all Facebook users totally free. If you want to become a member of the Pro Wrestling Podcast family, you want your name in the shoutouts like our good buddy John down in Texas. John, always love to give you that shout out. Then check our Patreon page at patreon.com/Pro Wrestling Podcast. Sign up today. Loyalty rewards. $15 a month contributors co-host a live show with me. $7.50 a month will enter you into a drawing to do just the same. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Pro Wrestling Podcast. If you've got questions, you've got comments, something you'd like for us to talk about in the future episode, by all means, pop over to the Pro Wrestling Sound Off line at 267-642-1160, where you can give us all your feedback, and we'll get to your topics in a future show. This week, crazy week. It's really become a situation where when you're somebody who reports on professional wrestling, you have all the wonderful things going on in the world of WWE right now, and then you have the dark cloud that looms over the business right now that is all of the information related to the Vince McMahon situation. I will say up front at the onset of this video, there will be some things we discuss today that are sensitive. Not a lot. I want to try to limit that because I'd like to spend more time enjoying the discussion about professional wrestling. But we do cover the things that are going on right now in the pro wrestling world. So if that is something you're sensitive about, please, by all means, change the channel, listen to another podcast or something. But we're just going to report what we report so that we can be on the up and up with you and let you know what to expect. That being said, one of the stories that broke today that really tying into the Vince McMahon allegations and whatnot has to do with former WWE and WCW performer Paul Roma, who at one time was a member of the Young Stallions tag team with Jim Powers, did an interview with News Nation. And in there was several things that came out that I thought were particularly concerning, very frightening, quite frankly, talking about whether or not he heard about the type of behaviors that are being reported about Vince McMahon in this ongoing lawsuit. And he said, quote, "Yes, it was pretty regular. You heard it on a regular basis for the most part. Then you wouldn't hear it for a while. Then it would come full circle. It wasn't so much Vince as it was the people he had surrounding him." I don't know how to take that, but clearly there was some miscreant behavior going on. And this is a situation where Paul Roma was a superstar in WWE going back into the mid-'80s until early 90s. I think one of his highest profile matches as a member of the Young Stallions against the Islanders, oddly enough, the main event of the first televised Royal Rumble show on USA Network. For those who ever watched that show live, they had the Royal Rumble where Hacksaw Jim Duggan won. Throughout that evening, they had the big contract signing between Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant for their matchup on February 5th, 1988. And the show was actually closed out by the Young Stallions versus the Islanders, Haku and Tama. So that's who we're talking about. That's the time period we're talking about, 1987, 88, 89. And for this to be a situation where things were going on back then, he was questioned about whether or not talent were propositioned for adult activity. He says they were asked to do things. I'm not going to go into the details of what he said, but he basically implies that there was a lot of money offered for certain things and that his partner would often respond with, it wasn't worth it, whatever he was being asked to do. I'm not going to comment further than that because I don't think I need to. But he also goes on to talk about the fact that when he had a conversation his partner had a conversation with one of the agents who he refers to as Arnold. We can speculate who that is, but he said, I already spoke to Arnold and that there was a falling out between them. He said, why did you do that? You just killed our team. What do you think he's going to do? He's going to go talk to the people that propositioned you. What do you think is going to happen to them? Nothing. And that's the quote that he gave. So he was very frustrated that his partner went and said something. Then he has another conversation that he had with Mario Mancini, an enhancement talent from the 80s, who said that there are situations that are worse than what Janelle Grant alleges. He says that he knows what it was. It was definitely worse. But he also goes on to speak about, there's a lot of people who say, like, if these people have stories to tell, why are they not bringing them forward? And there's a very simple answer to that. A lot of these talents, like Paul Roma, like Mario Mancini, we're talking about in the 80s, the people who these things may have happened to at this point may have husbands, wives, children, grandchildren. They're further along in their life, and do they really want to open this can of worms and cause their family all that grief and suffering? Now, that's what he's talking about. And he also goes on to say he can't blame them for not really wanting to open that. He calls it a Pandora's box. And I understand where he's coming from. I really do. I think what it comes down to is the discussion about the incredible difficulty of sharing something like that within your personal network of family members and whatnot, versus whether or not some people feel the need to do that simply because they want to prevent other people from having to experience whatever they experienced or having to hide their experiences. I, for one, from the beginning of this Vince McMahon situation, have been hoping that as many people as possible who were affected by these horrible situations would come out and share their stories. At the same time, I will never, I don't think anybody should criticize anyone who does not come forward. Just know if somebody's listening to this program and you've experienced those types of trauma, that kind of harm, it is your choice whether you come forward or not. And I applaud those who come forward. I think it takes incredible brave souls to do that. And for those who choose not to, I commend you for being able to rationalize that and make the decision that's best for you. But I do think it was very telling how passionately he spoke about these issues and how things went down. And it just doesn't feel good right now in terms of being a fan of WWE's legal situation. And, for those who were not there when these things were going on, makes it even more strange. We'll wrap up the only other frustration with WWE right now, which is in terms of Kevin Nash. Kevin Nash was doing his Click This podcast, and he spoke about being invited to see AEW Revolution 2024 to see Sting compete in his final match. His quote, he said, is, he asked me to be a part of it. I just said, with my positioning in WWE, I couldn't even, if I went into the crowd, it would be, I asked WWE, and when you ask and there's that 3-second pause, it's like when you're on the road. He was very clear that he had asked for permission to be a part of Sting's special send-off, and that even though he wasn't necessarily given a no, it was clear from their body language that was not something they were willing to do. And here's the thing, I get it. Tony Khan has gone out of his way to make WWE's life miserable in a lot of ways, constantly bringing up ratings, claiming numbers that are skew the viewership slide towards his company or whatever. The Wednesday Night War, when that was a thing. I get all of that. And likewise, WWE has thrown some shade back at AEW. One, not acknowledging them as competition, which to a degree, I understand because they're nowhere near the level WWE is, certainly not in global distribution or marketing, merchandise, or anything like that. Live attendance rate, anything like that. However, they've also done things on screen. I remember when DX went into the Hall of Fame, the line that Triple H used making fun of AEW and things like that. There have been jabs back and forth. And what I think is interesting about this timing-wise, why I find this so frustrating, is if these companies would find a way every once in a blue moon to work with each other and cultivate the wrestling community as a whole, it helps everyone. And right now, we are involved in one of the biggest storylines heading into WrestleMania 40 of all time. Speaking of Cody Rhodes challenging Roman Reigns with the involvement of The Rock and the Bloodline. And a lot of people have said how if Tony Khan wanted to, he could easily make it a very special situation where he could allow Goldust to appear, to allow Dustin Rhodes to return to WWE just for this Mania appearance. But then when you hear things like this where WWE has someone and they won't allow them to go to AEW, you could understand why something like the Cody and Dustin Rhodes thing won't happen. And it's a problem because they act like the world is, like their company's within this bubble. And the reality is the people who listen to my show and many of these other websites that do these shows, they're bigger fans than that. They would like to see these dream scenarios take place. And we can't do that as long as these companies operate under the assumption that they can't possibly work with one another. Because we know that's not true. AEW working with New Japan, CMLL, AAA. Tony Khan was at Rev Pro this past weekend watching Will Ospreay's send-off there against Michael Oku, which was an absolutely banger, incredible match. Find it online if you haven't seen it already, the full match. What a great finale to his Rev Pro career as he makes his way to AEW. We know that WWE has made partnerships and short-term agreements with different companies, most recently TNA Wrestling, but they've done things with All Japan, in distant past New Japan, so that you know they can do these things. It's a question of if and when they choose to do them and what kind of genuine overture they make towards one another. There is no reason WWE and AEW couldn't be a lot more friendly towards one another. It's really a shame because as the fans, we miss out on what could be really exciting news. Let's get into some other news. Shotzi last week was at a TV taping that is actually airing as I'm recording this episode tonight, Tuesday night for NXT. Blew out her knee. Apparently she tore her ACL and she's claiming she's going to be out of action for 9 months. How this is very frustrating for her, but it's going to also motivate her to get back in the ring. So we want to wish Shotzi a get well soon. She really fills an interesting role in the women's division. I don't know that anybody puts her on the same level as a Charlotte or a Becky or a Bayley or anybody like that, Bianca, but she certainly has a role, and she's an engaging character. She's a character that has a lot of the young folks who absolutely adore her, see the kids in the crowd with the green hair and all that, and I love that. So hopefully she makes a speedy recovery. In TNA news, and let's just go down the TNA route before we get back to some more WWE things. It was reported that by Fightful Select that Josh Alexander's contract was due to expire on Valentine's Day this year, and that TNA has now renewed his contract. They had a third-year clause. He had originally signed a 2-year deal that ran out February 14th. Now it will run out February 14th, 2025, because they have used his last year option. They've exercised that option, and he will be with TNA Wrestling for another year, which ties into another part of the story for the day, which is if you look on X and whatnot, you'll see that Jordan Grace, Josh Alexander, Tommy Dreamer, Speedball Mike Bailey, Chris Bay, Masha Slamovich, they all put up this icon with a hourglass, which in response to what we assume is in response to Scott D'Amore being removed from TNA Wrestling, being terminated. They have all spoke out very vocally in support of Scott D'Amore. Impact Wrestling, really, TNA needs a mind like Scott D'Amore. He has done so much for that company, and it's shocking to me after the rebrand and everything he did and getting the huge exposure of having Jordan Grace on the Royal Rumble, all that they would choose to part with him now when he has such respect from the locker room and when he's doing such innovative things. I just think that's a bad idea, bad decision on their part. But I don't run TNA Impact Wrestling, so I don't know where their headspace was at when that went down. A WWE star getting close to a ring return. Sheamus puts up a post earlier today that he was, I guess, messing with people. He said, anyone missing 5-star banger matches, match of the year 21, 22, and 23. And then he put, that was published today, February 24th, 2024, clearly indicating he's getting closer and closer to an in-ring return. Is he the guy that could challenge Gunther at WrestleMania now that we don't have Brock Lesnar? Is it going to be a Chad Gable who picked up that impressive win over Ivar on Raw? Is it going to be somebody else? Is it going to be a Braun Breaker who steps in even though he's signed with SmackDown? Is it going to be a talent that no one has really thought about? And I don't even know who that would be. But whatever they do, They need to start really putting together these matches for the WrestleMania card. We know that Gunther is not going to be at Elimination Chamber, so there's no reason to wait on it. They need to start building it immediately. I know they're trying to get through the chamber first, but sometimes people really appreciate those long-term booking scenarios. My prayer, and I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. What my hope and prayer is for WrestleMania, we know that next week on Raw, the New Day will face Imperium in a street fight. And what I am really hoping happens in that match, because Gunther does not have an opponent at Mania, is that the New Day begin to win that match. Gunther gets involved, and we see the long-awaited return of Big E to WWE, where he can aid the New Day and be the challenger and the man to take the Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania from Gunther. Big E is somebody who has a previous World Championship run. He would make him a legitimate, viable contender for the Intercontinental Championship. If he wins, it's not a shock, and it opens Gunther up for an opportunity to work a main event program with whoever comes out of Mania with the World Heavyweight Championship on Raw. That is what I'm hoping for. Of course, we have no idea yet, but to me, I don't see why they're putting so much time and energy into this New Day feud if Big E is not ready to return. It's a 3-man group on a 2-man group, and that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I think all the signs are pointing to that. We'll just have to wait and see. What we know after Raw last night is Jimmy and Jey Uso are clearly going to go to Mania and face each other. The big question was, apparently all the way up until 6 o'clock last night, according to WrestleVotes, Jey Uso was supposed to go over last night and win the Intercontinental Championship and end the reign of Gunther. And I've listened to all these different podcasts and shows today, seen it posted online. Why would they do this? Why would they change plans, this, that, and the other? And I think it's something so basic. For the people who are diehard junkies like you and I are, the longest cumulative number of days with the WWE Intercontinental Championship was Pedro Morales. As of today, it's now solely Gunther. And that, I think, is a big reason why they didn't want to end it this past Monday, so that Gunther can be the sole owner of that record. That's a record I don't think we'll ever see change, because I don't think, even though they've done so many of these long reigns lately, I don't think that's something they want to get in the practice of. So I think that's a big driving force behind why Jey did not win the Intercontinental Championship. And let's be honest, you don't really need the belt to tune in for Jey versus Jimmy. That's a built-in storyline, something we've been waiting to see for over a year at this point. So I don't think they need the Intercontinental Championship for that. However, that championship could really be a huge factor in a Gunther match with somebody like Big E, Braun Breaker, or somebody of that nature. So again, we'll have to wait and see. And the last topic for tonight is the big one. Let's talk Elimination Chamber. The pay-per-view as a whole, not a lot of matches announced for the show, let's be honest. We have a men's chamber, a women's chamber, a tag team championship match, and we have a women's world championship match. Let's start there. Rhea Ripley, the minus 5,000 favorite according to the wrestling odds makers, Bet Online, and I'm not going against the odds makers. Rhea Ripley absolutely going to win this match. She's going to come out and probably face, well, we'll get to that in a minute, which will be facing the winner of the chamber who, you know what, let's just get into it. The women's chamber. Right now, I think it's hands down has to be Becky Lynch. They've done too much teasing here. I think that Becky Lynch will face Rhea Ripley. She'll win the chamber. And I think when you look at the other women in the chamber, I think Bianca will end up facing Jade Cargill. I think that Naomi and the other ladies will have some sort of gimmick match of sorts at Mania, if maybe potentially a battle royal or something similar to what the men do. But I think in this situation, Rhea Ripley and Becky will walk out with the winning their respective matches at Elimination Chamber. The tag team championship match, Judgment Day versus Pete Dunne, Tyler Bate. Judgment Day heavy favorites. Why not? They're going to win. My prediction is Judgment Day retains because they are going to have to go against the Awesome Truth at WrestleMania, where the Awesome Truth will take away those undisputed tag team championships, leading to the finally having the breakdown between Finn Balor and Damian Priest. Balor's contract coming up very soon. I'll be curious to see if he re-signs. If he does, you could really draw out this Damian Priest-Finn Balor feud when it finally gets going. If not, the WrestleMania could be the blow-off in the end of Finn Balor. So we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. And finally, the men's Elimination Chamber match. Notice how we don't have any of the World Championship matches to talk about. That's really frustrating, but it is what it is. In the men's chamber match, Drew McIntyre is the minus 400 favorite. Randy Orton is second. LA Knight, Logan Paul, Kevin Owens, and Bobby Lashley in that order from minus 400 down to plus 1400. And look, I'm not going against Drew McIntyre either. He is doing some of the best character work of his entire wrestling career. Drew McIntyre, in my opinion, has to walk out of the chamber with the championship opportunity, and then he will take that title from Seth Rollins at WrestleMania and carry it into the summer. I think that makes all the sense in the world. The curious part for me is, once he takes the championship, how do we get to a match between he and Gunther again? Because remember, they have a history, and Gunther would be a great challenger for him, especially at Clash at the Castle or something like that, or the show in Germany. So I think that's a perfect setup for that to take place. That's all the time we have for this episode. Check back with us next episode where we'll run down the latest wrestling news and rumors. Special thanks, as always, go out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com for any music or sound effects we use in our shows. Today's show is sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bringing a new friend to family game night is easy with the game Sketchy People. Showcase your artistic side in this game from Beazle Games by going to thegamecrafter.com and picking up your copy today. If you're looking for your next career move, you're considering college, university life, or maybe you just need some formal training for your next career decision, go to our website at frolifeplanning.com for all your higher education needs, as Frolife Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Frolife. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Dr. Fro, and I thank you for taking a few moments with us today. Until next time, take care. Have a great night.